Hello, and welcome to today's episode of the Scottsdale Living podcast. I'm here today with my friend Christa Szalach from Szalach Financial Planning. Hi, Christa.
Hi, Amber. How are you?
I'm good. I love your blazer. You always have a nice, bold color on.
Thank you. We love a good pink statement.
I love it. So I know some things that we actually have in common, so I kind of want to start there. I know you played soccer. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yes. Played since I was 3 years old. Parents decided to lie about my age, so I started playing 2 years up.
Cool.
And then I ended up playing at Purdue in college and actually played through the semi-pro level for FC Arizona out here for a couple years.
Wow.
But my last season was in 2022.
That's cool. Did you guys ever rival the men?
So Purdue didn't have a varsity men's team, but we played the club men's team, which they actually were number one in the nation. They were very fast, but we did scrimmage with them for some extra challenges as well.
Exciting. Other things I know you love to do, country dancing. How'd you get into that?
Yes. You know, it was one of those, my whole family lives in Texas and my sister went to Texas A&M. And so a couple times visiting her, got exposed to it when she was in college. Didn't really do it for years. And then one of my best friends out here and I were like, let's go to Buffalo Chip. I love that place if you've ever been. And we just had the time of our lives. And I was like, I need to get into this. I need to do it more often. And here I found myself going two-stepping pretty regularly. And now it's one of my favorite hobbies. And anytime I can wear my boots, I'm down for it.
I love it. Actually, Buffalo Chip has kind of an interesting story. Were you there pre-fire or post-fire?
Post-fire. I heard about the pre-fire.
When did you move to Arizona?
I've been in Arizona since 2017.
Okay, yeah. So I started country dancing in college and I was like, this makes no sense. And the guy that took me on a date to go, he literally ended up, I'm trying to do 4 and he's teaching me 3. I was not being receptive. He just picked me up and started carrying me around.
That works too.
Like, okay. But later I got into it and it was super competitive. We used to go to Toby Keith's in Mesa. And I mean, every place in town, but it's quite the community out here. It's amazing. It's a great way to make friends and stay active. And if you're not even into talking to people, I actually think dancing is a great way to do that.
Yes. You really don't have to talk much. I've been to Denim and Diamonds and a couple other places in like the Gilbert Chandler area.
Distillery.
Yes, exactly. I always just find Buffalo Chip is where I go back to. I just love the outdoors. And if you're in for it, the rodeo, but don't always go to that.
Have you ever tried bull riding?
It is a bucket list item.
Oh, is it really?
It is. I've never done it, but I do horseback riding. So, yes, never done the bull riding. I've had a friend who's done it, but I just have watched it. And maybe one day I'll hop on the bull.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so financial planning. I have to get into the nitty gritty. Tell me, one, how the heck did you get into this? Like, when did this start? And I feel like there's a million things that people grow up thinking, oh, I'm going to do. So what pulled you to I'm going to be a financial planner?
Yeah. I love this question because never in a million years did I think I would be here. Background, I used to work in college sports. And, back in the day, I thought I was going to law school. So I actually have a master's in law, sports law.
Sports law?
Yep, through ASU.
What does that get you? What do you do with that? You manage athlete careers or help them stay out of
there's
contract trouble?
There's a lot of business side that you could do with the masters, but yes, exactly. Sports agent, I would say, is probably the direct path that a lot of people think they want to go. When I entered, I thought I wanted to do that. And I thought I wanted to go on to law school to become, a JD and actually handle contract negotiation outside of just being an agent for them. I quickly realized I didn't want to do that. After starting to study for the law school or LSAT exam and kind of thinking about what that career path consisted of, I decided I didn't want to go to law school. And I actually decided I didn't really want to work in sports long term. And ironically, one of my best friends at the time was a recruiter for Northwestern Mutual. She recruited me to be a recruiter. Okay. So I started to think about what I wanted in a career and just some of the attributes that this position offered aligned with me. So I was recruiting for financial advisors. I will get to where I am. And after only 4 months of recruiting, I realized I'm in the wrong spot. And so I decided that I'm going to make the switch to be an advisor. And so at 6 months total of being a recruiter, I was licensed, got credentialed and all of that, and made the switch to become a financial advisor and actually launch my own financial planning practice.
Wow. Okay. So financial advising still sounds like Spanish to me. So, and I think it does for quite a few people. There's quite a few in the area, but what does that mean? If I need to go in for financial planning, who do I talk to first? What is the team? Is there a team or is it just you? Is it like only when I'm ready to make big changes, like thinking, oh, I really need to know what to do with this retirement account? Or should it have already been there for a long time? What's that process?
Yeah, I love that question because I think there's a lot of, in our society, a lot of people don't understand what it really means to have a financial advisor and work with a planner. So kind of starting from the beginning of what you were saying, I think when it comes to working with an advisor, if you're working with the good one and the right one, they're going to create an entire plan for you. That plan, think about it like building a house. You need a strong foundation of your home. And in your financial plan, you need a strong foundation. What things could go wrong that we need to block and tackle against? That's the first step. Second step, like building a home, we're going to put walls onto the home. And in your financial plan, we're going to accumulate wealth. So this is where a lot of people, and actually a lot of advisors in the industry, jump right to. It's the fun, sexy part of planning.
Money.
Let's invest it. Your Roth 401k, your Roth IRA. Those things are important. Don't get me wrong. But we also have to have that foundation to fall back on. So the walls of the house is really where we go next with our clients. Okay, once we block and tackle, how do we start playing offense for probably 20 to 30 years, right? Your working years. We got to accumulate wealth. And how do we do that tax efficiently? So we're looking at all of that for our clients. Then the roof of your house gets put on. And in the financial planning world, that's retirement. How do we distribute all of the wealth that you've worked so hard for? Think about retirement like going down a mountain. I don't know if you follow hiking. I don't really follow hiking, but Mount Everest, there's statistics about this that, most of the injuries of people who summit Mount Everest have the injury happen on the way down. They're fatigued. They've already done all the hard work. Same concept with financial planning and retirement. Saving the money is not usually the issue. But when you're in retirement and you have no more income to save, how do you make sure that you touch your money in the most efficient way and don't outlive your money? That's where we come in the retirement stage. But for a lot of people, again, they want to jump right to that, investing, crypto, all of those different things. And we're going to take a holistic approach. Now, I know you asked about the team. I have an assistant that works just on my team. And then I do partner with other financial advisors at our firm. Truly, we all have different strengths. And I tap into their strengths. They tap into mine. I also think it's better for our clients, right? Having two brains working on your plan, maybe three versus one. I would want that for the same cost. Sounds good. I think I got all those questions.
I love it. So is financial planning really expensive?
Good question. It can be, but it also doesn't have to be. So common misconception in society is that you have to pay just to talk to an advisor. Well, there are advisors that operate that way. They're called fee-based advisors. My team doesn't operate that way. So we don't charge current or prospective clients anything to chat with our team. Really, I am trying to earn the right and trust to become my client's financial advisor, but I have to earn that right. At that time, they'll know exactly where their money's going and what any charges or commissions come out of that.
Christa, you're beautiful and you're young. Is that a barrier for you in your career field? Because when I think I'm in medicine, and when someone comes to me, when I started, I was 25 years old. And this little lady walked in and she was in her 80s. And I was the Doogie Howser of medicine. There was no way she was going to listen to anything I said, even if it was for the most basic thing that she was coming in for. Do you find that to be a problem in financial planning? Do people want you to be 30 years older than you are?
When I first started, because I started at about 24, I had that head trash, I think myself, that lack of confidence. And I worried about that, right? Am I too young? Do people think I don't know what I'm doing, even though I'm fully licensed and fully credentialed? I think sometimes that is a barrier that maybe people don't vocalize to me, but they feel and they think. However, I actually think it's one of my greatest strengths.
Beautiful.
I think that I'm going to be here long term when they need a financial advisor. Oh. I know that I'm smart. I know I have my licensing. I also know if I don't know the answer, I will find the answer. And I have resources to do that through 9,000 other advisors at my firm and just using resources available to us in the industry. But the average financial advisor across the industry right now, all firms, it's a male in his 50s. I don't know about you, but that sounds close to retirement to me. And if I was a client, I would want to make sure that my financial advisor doesn't retire before I do. Because who's helping me? Right. Who do I get passed to? Where do I go? That's really scary when it comes to your money and not necessarily having a plan. So I think, honestly, being younger, on the younger side, entering the year of 30s, I think is actually a strength because I will be here for my clients.
Wow. I really agree with that because there is nothing scarier. Like if you already had this entire plan and a strategy and you've been talking about this every year for the last decade or 2 or 3, and you walk in and now they're like, oh yeah, he's no longer here, or he handed it off to this person. You're like, where am I? Where am I? Because you're the compass, right? Interesting. Yeah, great point. So when is the most appropriate time? Like, do you have a financial planner?
What a great question. I currently operate as my own financial planner. Okay. However, I've actually thought about bringing in some of my colleagues to be my advisor. Money can be emotional. We are human. And when it comes time to making a tough decision, I think we let ourselves off the hook quicker than a trusted professional will. And yes, I trust myself. Yes, I'm a professional, but I'm also human. So I've actually had conversations with some of the other advisors about, will you be mine? But I think going back even earlier, I had a unique upbringing, I would say, after my experience in this field, in that my parents literally forced me to meet with their financial advisor.
How old?
I was, my senior year of high school.
Wow.
Started to meet with their advisor. And at the time, it was one of those as a senior, you're like, oh, fine, mom and dad, I'll do it. I'll check this box. I wish I would have appreciated it more. But nowadays, I see the importance, and I'm so glad they did that. Throughout college, they mandated that I met with their advisor at least once a semester. And again, it was kind of checking the boxes. But as I started to graduate into my master's, I realized the importance that this man had in our family's life. And with money, I think there's a lot of different views out there on this, but money gives us opportunities. I don't think you have to be a billionaire. I don't think you have to be a millionaire. Whatever makes you happy. But money is what allows you to do the things in life that you want to do. And so through my experience working with this advisor very early in my life, truly not appreciating it early on, I got to see what that looks like. And as I launched my financial planning practice, I feel like that experience I was able to bring in, especially for my younger clients who think, do I need this? Maybe not. And maybe you don't. But it's never too early to start that conversation.
Wow. Yeah, that had to be a leg up for sure. It's interesting because I think especially for when I was growing up, nobody talked to girls about money. Nobody. It was kind of like, it was still very Disney princess, even though divorce rates were already through the roof at that time. Luckily, my parents are married, but that's like a whole thing that I got to see this example. But it really was, still this idea that as women aged, they would find a partner and get married, and then they would get a house. Like it's gifted to them. It's not something that they had to earn or work for or pay for necessarily. Like that might have been insinuated somehow, but it wasn't really. It's like very Disney princess about money for girls. And like you get stuff, you don't work for stuff. So do you find that to be something where you're like, I think in my industry, women need more help because of that, or men seem more frugal or financially responsible, or, where do you see those things where you're like, yeah, if you are this and you know it, then this would be more helpful sooner?
Yeah. So industry-wide, what we're finding is actually a lot of women are controlling the household money more than men. And exactly what you said, generations in the past, women have not necessarily touched it and have just been expected to maybe go along with the flow. Yep, this is our home. Yep, this is our account. Yep, I'm staying at home. And don't get me wrong, being a stay-at-home wife is a full-time job, especially mom. But they were CEO of the house and they didn't really touch the finances. Nowadays, we're seeing that a lot of the women in the household are making the decisions, or at least handling the money, if not making decisions jointly.
Do they feel good about those choices? Or do you think like, wow, I really wish I could give like a master class to women who are, even the CEO of their household, or they're out there being entrepreneurs or working full-time jobs and managing home? Like, what's the correct course?
Yeah, I think education is something that I am very, very passionate about in the financial world. And I think with women especially, I am a woman in a male-dominated industry. I love it because I think it's a competitive advantage. Truthfully, there's not a lot of me. And that makes me stand out as well. But I think with the women in the households that are controlling the money, same thing. It is a little bit of a lack of education. However, I think that confidence, especially with our generations now, is really coming out the roof. My team and I have actually been hosting Women, Wine, and Wealth networking events for women in business. So we call them networking because we do want women in business to come together, network with other powerful women in business, right, to help them. But we're also sharing little wealth tidbits, and the feedback that we're getting from that has been through the roof. People are so appreciative of, I didn't know that. Like, here we are 3 glasses of wine deep. But thank you for sharing about X, Y, or Z. So I think to your point, it is a lack of education with women, but hey, women are decision makers now. I'd say a little bit more, if not more than men. And I think that's something that we got to recognize, and we need to make sure that we are hitting everyone equally in our society because they're out there and they're calling the shots.
That's awesome. I like that, like, turn of phrase too, like just it's empowering to know. That's amazing. Okay, so if you could pick any ideal client that you wanted to work with, what would be like the ones you always want to help the most, or like just connect with the most as far as like clients go that walk through the door?
Yeah. First, we work with a lot of different clients across different states. I'm fully licensed in right now 34 states, but that's growing rapidly, and different demographics. That means people from late 20s to retirement and through retirement, right? 60s, 70s. But one of the areas that I specialize in is actually working with veterinarians. It's a unique niche market. I kind of found myself in this early on after my sister graduated from Texas A&M vet school, and all of her friends were vets. Naturally, I knew a lot of vets. So when I started my practice, I was reaching out to them and seeing how I could help them. And I found that we are almost always able to help with something, maybe not the whole plan, but something they need. And this demographic, these veterinarians, they're hardworking. They're very, very passionate about what they do, and they truly care about helping animals. And they just need guidance on their money. A lot of my vets that I work with, they come home after 50 or 60-hour weeks and they're like, look, 1, I don't know what to do with my money, but 2, I'm tired. I want to take a nap and I don't want to deal with it. And that's where our team comes in. So we're able to bring a lot of value for these individuals.
I've heard facts about like medical providers being the worst at money. I don't know if that's like because school is so expensive and so long that basically you've already in your mind accumulated this idea that you incur debt to gain what you need to be successful. That's really kind of interesting. Like, I don't know what the psychiatry behind it or the psychology behind it is, but what do you think about that? And so, I know you said vets, but basically all medical providers probably need some help there, right?
Yeah. I would say anyone that's going through an extra 4 years of college, right? Or doctorate level school. And then you think about some of our specialists, both on the human side and veterinarian animal side. You've got an extra 4 years of internship, residency, fellowship. That's a lot of time, a lot of money. And they do usually come out with a substantial amount of debt. Now, the way that my team looks at this is you're investing in your future. That was strategic debt to take on because you're going to go make a lot of money. And I think coming back to what you said earlier, the statistic of a lot of people in the medical profession, human, animals, whatever it is, are bad with money. I don't know the actual data to support this, but I would agree with it. I think a lot of them, they go through school and they learn how to be great at what they do, but that schooling does not teach them how to run a business, how to handle their finances. how to make sure you're saving. And a lot of times these individuals come out, and especially if they're in a specialty line of work within their field, they're making really, really good money. They're spending it all.
Yeah.
How do they learn how to save? How do we teach them those habits of pay yourself first, then go have fun? Like when I work with my clients, my veterinarians especially, my rule is we're meeting once a quarter. I'm going to pull you off that hamster wheel of life, and you're going to sit down and think about your finances. But for the next 3 months, go have fun. Do what you want because you already did what you needed. You're good, right?
So,
you already planned.
So do you subscribe to like the profit first model?
Can we edit that? I don't know what the profit first
That's
model
fine.
is.
It's the pay yourself first model, so that people aren't like basically incurring. They say, oh, this is income, and then they start paying their bills. And then they're like, oh, well, I can't pay myself because I don't have it. I'm just paying bills and I'm thinking about the next bill. Instead, they take like 10% of all of their income out, or 20 if you were really, really aggressive with it and could think that way. So it's already gone, but it's basically pulling profit before you pay everything.
Yes.
So you're dealing with less off the top.
Yes.
It's the same as when your money disappears from your payroll check before it's deposited into your account to go pay taxes or be deposited in 401k. So it's a different model of that, but for saving or personal profit.
Yeah.
Like for business.
Absolutely.
Specifically.
Definitely. We're coaching our clients.
Should I start it over?
Yes, probably.
Okay. let me think about that.
Yeah, I've never called it that, but we absolutely 20% is where I'm trying to get clients. And that includes 401k.
Oh, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Okay. So you mentioned like really making sure that you're paying yourself first. So I think that follows like kind of this profit first model where you're taking a percentage right off the top. You don't really even see it, or you do, you're moving it. But in my mind, it made a big click transition because I didn't get it. And then I realized that it was just like when I actually was employed by a company and they took out my benefits and I had 11% and it was a match going into this account every single paycheck. And then an extra $100 per paycheck for taxes, like all the maximizations for deductions before I got paid. Because by the time I got it, I was like, okay, well, I want this. And so is that the recommendation? And if so, what is that magic percentage that's like, girl, if you aren't saving this, you're going to be living moderately instead of with wealth?
Absolutely. We want you living with wealth forever. Definitely subscribe to that model when I'm coaching and educating my clients. So I'd say about 95% of what I do is education. We're going to teach you how to do this, what you need to do. Then the other 5%, we're going to implement and hold you accountable to it too. If you can't tell from my personality, I will hold you accountable in a nice way, but I'm going to remind you what you said. So I think coming back to that, we're coaching our clients to get to saving at least 20% of their income. Now, saving, that's a broad word. Your 401k, right? In your example, you were doing 11%. That's 11% of your 20%. So that all goes together.
Okay.
So, but we need to get to 20%.
Okay.
Otherwise, statistically, we are not going to be on track for retirement. And if you want to live, when I say you, anyone wants to live a more luxurious retirement, we need to be saving way more than 20. So absolutely, when we get our money, when our clients get their money, we want them to have a pay yourself first thought process of, look, once I save into my 401k and defer into X, Y, and Z accounts, cool, it's mine. Go spend it. You gave yourself permission to spend that money. That's yours. Have fun and enjoy life.
Okay, so not total topic switch, but they say that the middle class is basically being eliminated. And so when I think of that, I think most people would think, okay, so if I thought I was in the middle class, which way am I going to end up? Top or bottom? And if that idea doesn't scare some people, they're either one or the other and they've already accepted it. But about what age or what number do you think most individuals would like to target by this age to say, yeah, you're probably pulling one way or the other that's like actually successful? We're talking about like total saved dollar amounts by this date.
Yeah, I think that's a really tricky question. But what I think in your 20s and into early 30s, you're just getting started, if you ask me. I mean, you've
well, these days,
absolutely.
50 years ago, 20 was like you have a full-time job, you're thinking about getting married, and you are buying a house in the next 5 years. The end. Now it's like, well, you're 30. You don't need to get married yet. That's way too soon. Buying a house like together? Wow. You know, like any of that. It's interesting and it seems more independent. But yeah, it's almost like the markers are getting moved back later. But then we are living longer, but that doesn't mean anybody wants to work past what the average retirement was 20 years ago. Nobody does. In fact, we all want to retire early. Like, if I'm not retired by 60, was I really successful?
Yeah.
And the rest of us are like, well, like I would retire, but I'd still like working, right? So where is that if everybody's, you know, kind of in this middle ground? How do you know by like age 50 or age 60, when you have 10 years left to retire, that you're either hitting the mark or you're not really hitting it?
Yeah.
Just for like a normal kind of life.
Yeah, I think that's where working with an advisor and planning is going to come in sooner. So I would say by late 20s, you need to be working with an advisor.
Dang.
And that's someone who's, you know, testing, are you on track for exactly what you're saying? Because I have people come into my office and tell me, Christa, I want to retire at 55 and I want this amount of money. Well, great. I have software that'll tell me if you can do it. I'll come back and let you know. But when I come back and tell you that you're not on track, because I already know you're not, and I have recommendations, are you in a place where you're actually going to save and make some changes?
Right. That's
what I think is the differentiating factor. Are you genuinely in a place where you're going to do something about it?
Well, you could say that about anything, like money, food,
weight loss,
fun, any of it. Yeah. And so, that is obviously nobody can sit there and pull it out of your account and say, don't spend it. But I do like that idea of like it being gone before you are really thinking, oh, that's in there.
I think it's your permission to spend. When you pay yourself first, everything else that hits your bank account, go have fun. Go enjoy it. Go take your trips and your vacations because you already did what you needed to do for your future self.
I love that. So what are like the big faux pas we just came out of COVID? And like I heard people pulling money out, like basically they're pulling money out kind of to live. I'm really, I don't know. I'm grateful that I'm in the line of work I am in. I couldn't be more grateful. I don't know how I got so lucky, but I've never not intentionally worked for more than 2 weeks. And that was just not the case. So if you are, you know, if God forbid the economy is dwindling down and people are, you know, bootstrapping for where every dollar comes from and goes. I mean, bread's like $8 a loaf right now. It's insane. So what's the best advice you can give people about maybe do they pull it? Do they never pull it? Like, is there a time and a reason to actually consider that? And what would it be?
COVID was such an interesting time for everyone, and especially in the money management world. I mean, truly, I remember meeting with prospective clients, and honestly, as a human, I literally was like, I don't know if you can pay your rent. That was a really, really scary time. And, you know, as an advisor, of course, what's in their best interest, my recommendation is you need to just keep every possible penny you can. And at that time, right, the government was giving some help a little bit. A lot of people were on that. That was a scary time. But we need to plan for those times because what we do know, it's going to happen again. Maybe not a COVID pandemic, right? But out of every 10 years, statistically speaking, 3 years in the stock market are going to be down, aka your money is going to lose value. 7 years are going to be up, aka your money is going to gain value. I can't tell you which 3 or which 7. That's based on hundreds of years of data. But when you think back to COVID, we were overdue. I think we were about 12 years out from our last market correction. It was time. Now, obviously, the global pandemic and there was more that happened than just a normal stock market correction. But we weren't that surprised on the financial side that something like this in the stock market happened. So how do you mitigate that? How do you hedge against that? We got to have diversification. You need to have money in different environments that is there on the sideline for those oh crap moments. And COVID was a long oh crap moment, but a lot of people just weren't diversified and prepared for that. Did they have the amount of savings on the sideline that statistically they should, aka 3 to 6 months of your lifestyle expenses. Most Americans
definitely don't. Yeah.
There's a statistic that if you had a $400 expense, any American had a $400 expense, majority of people have to swipe a credit card. Like they can't pay it.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So everybody's kind of like buckling down a little bit, and you're saying like, what would be the reason that you would touch that? Or no. Like never, ever, ever, because even if you were accumulating debt, like where's that tipping point?
Do you mean more touch accounts, like retirement focus?
I treat a lot of people who have like a ton of medical debt, right? I see people who've had big strokes and they were never expecting it. Like I'm insured up. Okay. I have cancer, heart attack, and stroke insurance, long-term, short-term disability on top of that. Like I have insurance. I have 3 life insurance plans and I am not married and have no children. 3
Me too.
For the people that I care about. Like, so, it's fascinating. It's fascinating to me to think that we don't think that way, that because we're young, nothing bad is going to happen. Not to make your podcast like negative or anything, but like things happen. And so my line of work is seeing that every day. But I know that most people even basically aren't even paying for health insurance a lot of the time. And so it's just for extreme emergencies. You know, if you just have to go to the doctor and get some cough medicine, you're still paying a deductible. You could totally have paid that with cash. They have a cash pay rate. You go get your medicine and you go on your way. But in the case that I'm driving and get in a massive car accident and am permanently or temporarily paralyzed or something terrible, that's when that kicks in. And hopefully I don't have to pull, but I know a lot of people that don't. Is that the time?
Yeah, I think 2 thoughts as you ask this question. First, sometimes life gives you lemons and it doesn't go the way you planned, and you got to just do what you do and pull from accounts that maybe you don't want to. Example, in COVID, stock market's down. Any financial advisor is going to say, don't pull, right? If we don't realize the loss or sell off your money, it didn't happen, right? If you leave your money in there, even though it's down on paper, we didn't touch it, so it'll come back up. But there are times that you're going to have to dip into accounts that you didn't want to prematurely, like a 401k. Pay a 10% penalty if you touch it before 59 and a half. COVID was an interesting time, but I also think that just baseline planning for most Americans was not done properly. And that's why so many people were in a bad situation in environments like that. I also want to echo what you were saying. You know, I talked about earlier, defense first, right? Sometimes you got to block and tackle, and that's the foundation of your financial planning house. You might get in a car accident and you might be out of work. Maybe you don't die, but you're out of work. How do you get a paycheck? Because the last time I checked, you're going to have medical bills that are even higher than what they were before. And if you don't have an income, game over.
Or even if you got a raise last year and you didn't reflect that, it's only a percentage of your income that's actually being returned to you if you did have disability insurance. And if you didn't reflect that, it's not in that paperwork. I mean, maybe you'd have to fight with them and submit a bunch of stuff that says, yeah, well, I've been making more for the last 3 months. But technically, they're not obligated, I don't think, to pay you that because you didn't sign it that way.
Your contract states otherwise. It's just a legal contract with an insurance company. And so I think things like disability insurance, and I know you recognize the importance of that in your field, but it is so important to have because it costs pennies compared to what you make. Like a cup of coffee a week, don't get that. And you got your disability insurance to protect something that's so big, your income. You know, we do these analysis for clients and we look at, hey, if you were to get sick or injured and today you couldn't work from now until 60 or 55, whatever age you want to see, how much money are you leaving on the table by not having that? It's millions. If you add up every single paycheck between now and that time, that's millions of dollars. And, you know, my thought process is I insure my phone, my Apple Watch.
Dang, girl, I gotta get some more plans.
my car, right? Like everything's insured. And I look at those things and they're losing value, right? Every year, the newest iPhone comes out. So the, 11, 10, whatever, they're worth less and less. But here I am. Why would I not insure my income that goes up typically and is worth millions of dollars over the years? That's the thought process. You got to have that so you can live your life no matter what life gives you.
I love it. I love it. So I think of this like, I'm like, oh, wow, I am aging because now whenever I go do something really fun, I actually think about these things like, well, what would it be? I went skiing the other weekend. I know you go skiing. I went skiing the other weekend. And when I got to the mountain, I realized I didn't have my knee brace. I had ACL surgery a long time ago and I didn't have my knee brace. And I was thinking in my head, not I'm afraid, but I was thinking, what is the risk of me tearing this, not being able to work, having to have surgery and having to go through rehab again? Because my rehab was terrible. That process of even how long I would be out of work, I was like, I better be meticulously careful as I'm going down and not do anything really dumb, which literally sometimes is like turning right instead of left.
Yep.
Right. So like I needed to look at the map a little bit better and make sure I knew where I was going because I don't think I've been to that mountain since I was a kid. And so it just was interesting to think a little bit about the risk averse nature of what I was doing instead of like, I don't want to not do it, but I want to make sure that I'm kind of thinking about that risk strategy as I'm going forward. It would have been great if I had my brace.
Right.
Would have been great.
Absolutely. I love that example that you just shared. And I think that's so applicable. My goal is for my clients to enjoy life. Right. Let's go live it to its fullest because there's a lot to do out there from activities like extreme sports, skiing, to traveling and doing all those things. But things can happen. Accidents can happen. And I think it comes back to prepare for the worst, hope for the best. Let's make sure that we are completely blocking and tackling. We have that defense. And then we're going to go for the Hail Mary and let's play fun and have some big returns with our vacations.
I love that. Okay. So Christa, we met in a business group, Scottsdale Living Business Edition, which is our club for business owners. Side note. So we met in this business group and I have never seen small business the way that I have over the last 4 years. And I think that before I became a business owner, I thought a lot of things were true that are not true. Like, I'm a hard worker. This will be easy. Like, well, so-and-so could do it, so I can do that. I thought that I had all the tools. And then I walked into this thing and I was like, whoa, oh my gosh, this was scary. And over time, that's actually why the business edition exists. It's because at the very beginning of COVID, everyone was losing business and terrified. And so we're running the group and behind the scenes, there are like 300 posts a day trying to advertise your individual business. And I was like, whoa, this is so overwhelming. But I went to John and I was like, these people need help. We need help. Like, what do small businesses do right now? Like, we can't all be Walmart. It's like Walmart was open. That's it. Walmart and the hospital. Nobody could survive. So how do I know who actually is still in business? It's like everybody's closed. What do they do? What are they offering? That's how the business edition actually started. So when you hear people right now that come to you and they're like, you know what, Christa, I have been wanting to start a hot dog stand for like 20 years. Or not. They're like, I have always wanted to own a car dealership or a bar or whatever. And you're like, what's the first thing? You're like, listen, I've known you for 20 years. You love to quit working at 2 p.m. You work 4 days a week. Like, what is it that you're like, or you're like, I think you could make it. Will you be honest with someone and give them that advice? Or are you like, most people have no idea and probably couldn't hack it? And if they had come in and talked to me, I would have straight up told them. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think a lot of things about starting a business and the work that it takes. And I'm a very transparent, probably too blunt sometimes person. And I will always shoot people straight. But I think the work ethic is something that I absolutely would hit on all the time. I coach, I run our internship program with our firm and also coach new advisors as they get started. And as I recruit and coach them, that's the one thing I make sure they leave every meeting knowing when you start a business, you're going to be working if you want to be successful. If you don't, sure, cut out early. If you want to fail, cut out early. That's fine. But I think, relating this to clients, a lot of times, sometimes, I guess, they don't pick my brain as much as I would like whenever they're thinking about doing these things, because I would be straight up with them. But I also think maybe that's a lack of education on my doing or my industry's doing, because a lot of people don't understand that most financial planning firms, financial advisors, we're small businesses. Mm-hmm. We are starting from the ground up. We are hiring our own assistants. We are building our clientele. And that is something that takes a lot of time and effort. My first year, I was working 60 plus hours every week, studying for different exams and credentials on the weekends. And now I'm at a place where, I'm still working 50 plus hours, but it feels better. It's not 60. And so definitely would be honest with people if they come to me. And I think a lot of times, even with just personal relationships, friends, family, anyone that wants to pick my brain on something like that, especially my close people, they've seen how hard I've worked to get to this level and the success. And I will absolutely share that with other people, because I think it's a great opportunity. Working for yourself, being an entrepreneur, having that independence and freedom, I wouldn't trade it. But you got to know what you're in for when you go for it.
Right. Like I can take any day off that I actually want to. Could schedule it. Just, next Friday, sure.
Right.
I approve this method. But on the flip side, if you are not okay figuring out, planning, writing out, even email responses, handling things at 10 p.m. or after dinner, like you went out and now you need to switch back into work mode, then entrepreneurship might be hard.
Yeah.
And if you don't, if you're in a relationship and, your partner doesn't quite understand that, or understand why you have the passion for that, because some people are motivated by the work that they do. Like I have the best job in America, so sorry, but I have the best job in America. But on the flip side of that, sometimes it means too that my work is not always that part of my work, or the other businesses are not that kind of work. And so it feels different sometimes. I don't get the same value out of that kind of day that I do when I get to see my patients and help them. And sometimes that work runs into like 10 p.m. or late, and I want to still have balance, but it's not necessarily always about the money that somebody's driven. And sometimes it is. It's like, no, I am slaying over here with this and I love doing it my way. And this is the motivation. And so as long as I can do this, then everything else is okay. So it's just interesting about small business right now, because like it seems like everyone has a business, but what the group is doing, and obviously what you're also doing, helping people with their money and how they think about money, is helping make sure that they are actually successful in that. They don't just start it and it becomes a thing that they do that honestly is more of a waste of time than anything else. They say that most small businesses fail in the first 5 years. So like if you know that going in, why would you take out a $200,000 loan against your business when you have no proof of concept about your business or your brand? I think people still operate a little bit on this. I'll hang a shingle up. Like if you're in a tiny town, that works. But in this kind of environment, it is just not the way. And you really have to have a little bit more, not a little bit, you really got to get your feet way dirtier than that. Yeah.
The grit level. I think you got to have a lot of grit. And I know in our last meeting, John kind of talked about guerrilla marketing, just different ways to make yourself known and memorable. And I think that is so relevant to any small business owner, especially with today's, technology, Instagram, TikTok. I'm not on the TikTok, or I always call it the TikTok. I'm not on the talk. I just, my friends keep telling me like, Christa, this is where you need to be. Like, get on that.
I know.
But I don't want another social media app. So I'm saying no to that one for now. But I do think, to your point, you got to be gritty and you got to really get yourself out there. Because if you don't, the next person is.
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference of succeeding and failing. How much energy and time, and I think just core work ethic are you going to put into it? Because I don't always think more time equals better.
Right.
You can be efficient in less time, but more work ethic is always going to win.
Well, I love it. You have been absolutely amazing on this podcast. If you guys want a little bit more information, you can totally check out Christa Szalach at Szalach Financial Planning. And how do they get a hold of you?
So you can reach me via email, krista.szalach@nm.com, or give me a call on my cell.
Yeah, you can edit anything you want. Okay. So Christa, if people want more information about financial planning or just get to know you, how do they reach you?
Yep. You can reach me via email at krista.szalach@nm.com. You can also visit my website. It's kristaszalach.nm.com.
How the heck do we spell Szalach?
Great question. Szalach.
Awesome. Thank you, Christa. Thanks for taking the time to come on with us. And you were fantastic.
Thank you, Amber.
That has been today's episode of the Scottsdale Living podcast. See you again soon.